Well, if I haven't had a chance to meet you yet, my name is Matthew. I'm the pastor here at Titus Fellowship. It's a joy to have you if you're our guest today. What a great time for you to be here. We're starting a new series on the Ten Commandments. And so you didn't know this, but you picked the perfect day to come to church for the first time. And so we're thankful for you if you're our guest. If you are a member here, we're excited to launch into this new series and to see what the Lord may have for us in this ancient text that may seem very familiar, but I promise you will call us into things that maybe you're not expecting this morning. As we begin, I want to invite you to a little exercise. I want you just to sit quietly and still for the next 3 to 5 seconds. Do you hear that? Maybe you hear the AC working for the first time today. Maybe you hear the rustle of the person next to you who can't just quite sit still enough. Maybe you feel the texture of your shirt against your skin right now. Maybe you feel the pressure of the back of the chair that's supporting you in this moment that you hadn't really registered before here. It's okay if you didn't notice these things beforehand. It's okay if you didn't notice them until I called your attention to them, even. What you're experiencing right now is what psychologists call selective attention. See, your dad wasn't joking when he said he had selective hearing. It really is a thing. Your brain has a built in gatekeeper that constantly asks the question: is this new? Is this dangerous? Is this important? If the answer is no to any of those questions, your brain can just delete that signal from your mind before it consciously registers for you. It becomes just kind of mere background noise as you go through your day. There's probably a lot of things in your life that act like background noise for you. But you see, we don't just filter out sounds and the feelings of our shirts, we also filter out ideas that we think we've mastered and no longer have use to hold on to. To give you a great example for parents in the room, think about the last time you helped your kid with geometry homework. It's possible that for the first time in 20 years at that point, you were sitting there trying to figure out what in the world is X's problem. Your brain said, hey, I have mastered this geometry in the eighth grade and I haven't used it since. Let me go ahead and just kind of push that out until you realize, oh my gosh, I need it all of a sudden again. Here's what I want to submit to you this morning as we start. There is nothing in the Judeo Christian worldview that is more susceptible to being filtered out than the Ten Commandments. They have become the ultimate background noise in the Christian faith for us. They become background noise in the faith and the culture around us and the greater societies that we live in. We see them in places depicted on stone tablets around our country. Outside of official government buildings, you will see these things pictured there. You have heard them and learned them in Sunday school when you were a small child. And now, because you think you know them, your mind has flipped them to a switch and says, old information, trivial knowledge, no immediate relevancy. You just go ahead and filter that out. You may have even thought upon hearing that we were going to start a series on the Ten Commandments, you thought to yourself, this seems kind of irrelevant. What am I going to do? Go around next week and not covet my neighbor's truck? Like, that's my big lesson for the week? You see, when we filter out the Ten Commandments, we mistake familiarity for understanding. Oh, yeah, I know that thing, but we don't really understand it. We assume that they're just ancient, dusty checklist for behavioral modification, just a baseline standard of just don't kill somebody that at least some of us in the room have actually achieved so far. But what if the filter is causing you to miss the very foundations of human flourishing? What if these aren't just 10 arbitrary rules to keep us in line, but a map to show us how reality actually works? You see, when we filter out, we aren't just ignoring old rules, we are blinding ourselves to the very rhythm of life that God has designed us to walk in. And so, for the next few weeks, we are going to force our minds to turn the volume back up a little bit this morning. We're going to push back against images of stone tablets and Sunday school nostalgia. We're going to bypass the filter and look at these 10 ancient words as if we're hearing them, hopefully, for the first time. Because when we stop filtering them out, you realize they aren't just a checklist to obey, they are the very foundations of wisdom. And so I begin this morning with my first point. That's the state of the commandments today. As they stand today, the commandments are featured, but I'd say largely forgotten within our culture. Since God's voice thundered down from the heavens, as Patty read just a few moments ago in Mount Sinai, these words that Moses brought down have been deeply valued in our culture. They have played a massive role, not just in Israel's history, not just in Western history, but even American history as well. They are part of our legal framework. John Adams, second president of the United States, said this when he spoke about the Ten Commandments, had this to say. He says, as much as I love and esteem and admire the Greeks because the Greeks are so smart, right? He says, I believe the Hebrews have done more to enlighten and civilize the world. Moses did more than all of their legislators and philosophers. Moses did more than Plato or Aristotle or anybody else in history to change the way we view our relationship with God, but also with one another. There's a Harvard law professor back in the early 20th century, Alan Dershowitz, who put it this way. So the Ten Commandments are clearly a precursor to all Western law, including American law. These 10 function as the building block for all Western ethics. All the other laws that flow out in the Bible themselves flow from these 10 laws. They are, in essence, all of biblical wisdom. The the New Testament, rather, even actually carries forward the 10 Commandments as well as supremely important and foundational to how we should live. Jesus, as we're going to see a lot in this series, has a lot to say about the Ten Commandments. He constantly reflects back on them as the very foundation of his teaching. The Apostle Paul even cites and says, hey, the 10th commandment, by the way, is the reason I know I'm a sinner. He says that in Romans chapter 7. They're super important. Throughout much of history, the 10 have played a central role in educating Christians on how we should live. When smart, intelligent Christians throughout history have said, how do we know we're training people to be good Christians? The first thing they said is, do they know and do they live by the 10 commandments? If we could just get that going, that'd be great. But today, these 10 have faded into background noise. Let me give you an example. A recent survey from about 2018 found that only 14% of Americans could actually name all 10 commandments. I practiced this week with some unassuming people at the Perk. You get about halfway there is really good. By comparison, a quarter of all Americans can name the 7 ingredients in a Big Mac. I didn't know there were 7 ingredients in a Big Mac, did you? More of us know that a Big Mac has 2 all beef patties than we know that thou shalt not kill is one of the 10 commandments. But we would all agree they're important. And we would all say, of course, they're important. But our minds have filtered them out as these very important words. And so I think the reason why, if I had to give like just a simple reason why is this happening in our culture? Why is this going this way? I think in large part it has to do with the fact that we don't really know what they are. We think we know, we think we have an understanding, but we haven't really grasped what's really going on when Moses put these down on page for us. So what are they, is my next point. And the first thing I want to remind us of is that they are primarily words and not rules. You may have noticed that I've referred to these 10 not as commandments, but as words several times already, in part because this is how God presents them to his people. Look back in your text for a second in Exodus 20, verse 1, and just see this first little part. It says, and God spoke all of these words. And I draw your attention to this seemingly minor point this morning to make the much larger point for us, because these words are viewed as so common that we don't actually read them carefully. And this is an invitation for all of us to not view them as the ceiling of morality. Hey, if you do these things, you are killing it as a Christian, but rather as the launching pad into the good life. That these are the things we should be launching from as we think of even better ways and deeper ways to live the meaningful life. These words are simple, but they open the door to a robust world of wisdom to be explored, as we're going to see. They are a set of the most basic 10 short instructions for life. Yet because they are so robust in what they capture, these 10 instructions can be something that touches practically all areas of our life. In fact, most modern scholars agree when they look at the kind of remaining laws, the things that you probably kind of skimmed over when you read your Bible in Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, when they look at the rest of these entire laws, they say, hey, all of these things are jumping back over here and talking about these first 10. We're just trying to figure out how to actually live these 10 all the way over here. So the second thing I want us to really capture about these is the 10 is that they always follow after grace. This may seem very obvious to you, even trivial, but Exodus 20, where we find these 10, comes after Exodus 19. I know, earth-shattering news, right? In Exodus 19, what we find there is the retelling of the story of the escape through the Red Sea for the Israelites, the liberation story of the people of Israel, the great rescue that God came down and did. And so don't miss this morning, church. The law comes after the rescue, not before. God didn't show up in the midst of the Israelites in their captivity in Egypt and say to themselves, look, I am giving you these 10 laws. Keep them for me. And if you do a good enough job, when I come back in 500 years, we're going to evaluate you as an entire people and see, are you worthy of my love? Are you worthy of my rescue? You see, they come not as an escape plan to get out of Egypt. They're a response to the freedom that has been won for us by God. These 10 act as guidelines of what it means to be the rescued and loved children of God in this world, the special people of God. You see, in the same way that we form covenant relationships with our spouse in marriage, God is forming a covenant relationship with Israel in these 10 words. We tell our spouse, we're going to be faithful to them. Hey, I'm not going to sleep around with other people. I am committed to you in this relationship. We tell them, hey, I will tell you the truth at all times as best I can. I will honor you in that way. We will have open and clear communication between the two of us. Hopefully, you're saying that to your spouse. I'm not going to hide from you anymore parts of me. But in marriage, I give everything I have of myself to you. We proclaim that we will love our spouse not only in our words, because talk is cheap, but also in our actions. God is calling the Israelites in this covenant at Mount Sinai into this very same principle. These 10 words are actions God calls the Israelites to uphold and affirm that they still desire to live in covenant relationship with God. They are not check marks on a program. This is why God reminds them once more in verse 2 says, I am the God who rescued you out of Egypt. I am the God who saw you in captivity, and my unmerited love for you that you didn't earn because you were special has already rescued you. Now here's how I want you to live. In so many ways, the 10 are an invitation back into Garden of Eden, Genesis 3, living with God. They are a call to reject worldly wisdom and living, to reject a very me-centered philosophy and way of life, to return to a morality and a model of living that is handed down from the Creator God. They are a significant step in reversing the curse of Genesis 3, where we decided to go our own way in our own wisdom because we thought we knew better than God. You see, the 10 are an invitation back into real life. And so hopefully feeling a little bit more of the significance of the 10 now, let's address the kind of the final question I want to get to this morning. And that's why they matter right now. Why do they matter now? These 10 words matter because they continue to shape the Christian life today. I want to give you 4 ways this morning that these words written by the finger of God 3,000 years ago still ring true today and should still instruct us into how we should actually live. The first is this: the 10 Commandments tell us how we should live. In Exodus 19, I mentioned it earlier, God calls Israel a holy nation and a kingdom of priests. In First Peter chapter 2, verse 9, the Apostle Peter, he picks up that same language from Exodus 19 and says, hey, church today, you too are a holy nation and a kingdom of priests. And so therefore, as in Exodus 20 to 9, or 19 and 20, we see the same concept that the words in Exodus 20 seek to answer the question, how in the world does a holy nation in a kingdom of priests actually live? What would that even look like? Those are just words. They are a code of conduct for the priests and saints God called into his family. And they are what will mark us as separate from the world around us. And so, second thing is this, they show us what our God is actually like. These laws could be summarized, and they're summarized later by Jesus by saying very simply these two concepts: love God, love people. They reveal to us in their nature a God who takes his holiness and life giving wisdom very seriously. And they reveal to us how to live in his love and desire for our own individual and collective flourishing. These are not just simply about you being a better person. These are about how do we all, as a community of faithful priests and saints, live together in a way that brings flourishing. Third thing is this: these 10 are a response to God's work. I said this earlier, but it bears repeating here. These words come after the parting of the Red Sea. They are not about doing enough of them to be worthy of getting rescued out of Egypt. They are about getting what remains of Egypt in our hearts out of us. This is how God has always worked. This is not new, and this is not trivial or mundane. He's always been love, then covenant. Notice the words of Jesus in John 14:15. It's going to be on the screen for you. Here's what Jesus doesn't say. Jesus does not say, if you obey all my commandments, then I will love you. Instead, after washing his disciples' stinky feet, Jesus says to them, hey, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. Love, then covenant. The commandments and the desire to live them come in response to the love that has already been poured out by God towards his children. The commitment to live out these commandments comes after we have already committed in our hearts to love and follow Jesus, not before. You don't start doing these 10 really well and then you become a Christian, you graduate towards it. Grace and love burst through first, and they call us into good living. My final thing for us is this: that these words are the beautiful and firm foundation that we need to flourish. C.S. Lewis, great writer in the 20th century, he said this about the beauty of the law and the Ten Commandments. He said this really so well. The good news of the law is like the good news of arriving on solid ground after a shortcut gone awry through mud, muck, and mire. After fumbling about in squishy, stinky mess, you're relieved to finally hit something solid, something you can trust, something you can count on. Our world around us is nothing if not shortcut living, right? One of the favorite words to put on an Instagram or a YouTube video is the word hack. Let me show you this hack of how to break the code, get past the system, make life easier for yourself, do all these things faster, more efficient so you can make more money, right? That's the world we live in today. The result is not utopia, but it's actually brokenness. And as we follow the world's path, we feel the ground beneath us getting looser and looser. The 10 are that solid rock that we find upon which we can build a life truly worth living. A life that, as Jesus said when he finished his Sermon on the Mount, said, if you build your house on this rock, it will not fall. Have you ever considered how beautiful this world would be if everyone actually kept these 10 words? There would be thousands of laws in America that could be scrapped. Jim Mahon would have never had a job as a lawyer. The law is not an ugly, oppressive burden. It is good and righteous and holy, and it leads us into life. I hope this morning, as way of introduction, has turned up the volume for you a little bit today, even slightly with these 10 words. My prayer by the end of this series is that they are playing loudly in our mind as we walk throughout our days. These words are the key toward the good life found in Christ. If this has been your observation, maybe this is true of your life. You prayed a prayer, you asked Jesus into your heart, but nothing's really changed. Life is still miserable. It's still hard. You don't feel like you've grown anywhere in your walk. These 10 that we're going to talk about are going to be that launching pad for you into the good life. These 10 are going to be what it means to actually follow after him. And they will radically change how you live and how you move in this world if you do them well. Here's my main thought for you this morning. God didn't give us rules to rescue us. He rescued us to give a rhythm for life. There's something better here waiting for you. Are you going to walk towards it? I'll give you a little bit of takeaway thoughts here at the end. I try to frame these into these kind of 4 principles that I hope to be true for us as a church. The first is that you be a steady follower of Jesus. My prayer for you is that as you go through this life at Titus Fellowship, you are incrementally growing in your faithfulness with Christ. You are growing as a follower of Jesus. And so here's a thought for you this morning as a steady follower. I want to invite you this week to read these 17 verses once a day for the next week. And as you do, I want to invite you to explore the words, to read them slowly, maybe for a change. Perhaps commit one of these 10 to memory this week. Pick the shortest one if you have to. I don't want you to just be a steady follower. I want you to be a family blessing. I want your family to be different because you live in it and you go here to Titus Fellowship and you follow after Jesus. So here's my thought for you as a family blessing. What we will see as we go is that by practicing these 10 words, your community will flourish. And most immediately, the closest relationships in your life will flourish because of this. And so look this week for areas of the 10 Commandments that have been background noise in your life for too long. As you read them, ask the question, God, which one of these is so familiar to me that I don't even care about it anymore? Explore it. Thirdly, I want you to be a community light. I want you to be people that the world outside of these walls looks and says, there's something different about that person, and I want to be close to that. So this week, I'm going to invite you to be the solid ground of the community this week for those who are outside of Christ to find their footing with him. When your community around you seeks to go a different direction from these 10, and trust me, there will come a point this week where the community around you seeks to go a different direction than these 10. I invite you to lean even more into them and be that person that says, man, there's something different about you. I got to know what it is. Last thing is to be a faith multiplier, to not be a person who just hears good sermons on Sundays or mediocre sermons on Sundays, depending how you feel about me, but to be a person who says, what can I take from this? And not just hold on to it for myself, but give it to somebody around me who needs it. How can I multiply what's already been given to me? I'll tell you, you probably know people around you who know more Big Mac ingredients than they do commandments. This is a great time to invite them into communities here so they can freshly hear the law of God and perhaps open their eyes to the beauty of it as well. But they may not get that chance if you don't invite them. So think about your one this week. Who is a person who needs this? And call them into it. As we launch into this series, may we constantly be reminded that love and rescue come before covenant loss. Before we ever try to live out the entirety of the 10, let us look to the one who actually lived them perfectly. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus in these next few moments as our hope for holy and pleasing lives towards God. The great overwhelming news of this series is going to be very simple. You can't live up to this law, but there is one who did, and he lived it for you. And through him, you can live in it too. So don't try to be better. Try to come follow him. I want us to bow our heads and pray. I want to invite you to ask Jesus to help you remove the filter that may be in your mind, blocking you from hearing his words in a fresh way. We pray for us.